Do you prefer doctor or professor?
Don't care. Simon.
Okay.
Yeah, I've learned the hard way not to stand on ceremony. Um,
Fair enough.
and the world that's coming, I believe, such things like what qualifications you have will become a whole lot less important.
Mm.
So,
Wait, I have to ask you to say more on that.
okay. I've personally seen across my career the weakening of the institution of the university. Right, you look at the PhDs that were written in the 70s, and you can, like when I was doing my PhD in the early 2000s, I would go to the library and actually do like a research to see what's been done before. And I saw all the PhDs that were written like 25 years beforehand, and they were amazing. Right, they had a lot less technical support. Like it was much easier for me to write a document with Word, Microsoft Office, and Excel and all that. But the substance behind what they did was of a much higher quality, almost to the point it was what we called a PhD in, say, 2002, would have been considered a master's degree in 1979. Right, and what was called an honours thesis would have been called a master's degree. Now, what we call a master's degree in 2002 would have been called a honours thesis in 1979. So standards have dropped. But I also saw that when I was lecturing, that standards were students wanted to be spoon fed and got very, very aggressive when they weren't spoon fed. So it got to the point where it was to actually get them to think for themselves. They wouldn't do it. They demanded that lecture notes be uploaded electronically a week beforehand, and they'd hand in complaints, and I'd face disciplinary action from the rector of the department if I didn't do it. It's and yeah, and so undergraduate in particular, they wanted the handheld. So I started embedding mistakes into practicals, not known mistakes. And if they didn't find those mistakes, then they got marked down. Sucks to be them. They thought I was a bastard. I would often start up a practical that involved something that wasn't possible. Right. Yeah. I think, for example, in comminution, where the crushing and grinding of rock, the way it's done is we do it in stages. You have a crusher which takes the big stuff and gets it down to say about that, and you have a sag mill that grinds it down to that, and you have another grinding device that takes it from say 100 micron down to 20 micron, and you've got to do it in steps. And so we had this prac called Hammer That Rock, where we would drop a weight down a PVC tube onto a rock, and you'd had to keep dropping it until 100% of the rock passed 150 micron screens. Now, unfortunately, comminution doesn't work that way. You can't do it in one step. So they're there for 3 hours dropping this way. It's not working. God damn it. Why is it not working? And the answer is it's not possible. And when they work that out, they get very angry. But they never forget it. And from that point on, our relationship in the subject is established. As I'm going to drop I used to call it the turd in the punch bowl. Every now and then I'll actually, and this is what happens professionally. Things go wrong, and you have to adapt on the fly. And your ability as an engineer is to deal with such situations. So I'm not doing them any favors by spoon feeding them. So yeah. Anyway, also the world that's coming. So the institution of the university is declining, and a lot of universities now they've gone. They're no longer about science and engineering, and they're now more about social justice. And so you've got schools like mathematics and physics are actually changing their curriculum based on social justice, and science is now weakening. So there's that side of things, and when the implications behind uh, like I'm tracking patterns in about I've got about 7 or 8 fronts of macro scale patterns, and any one of them would involve a major restructure of society. But all of them together in the same 5 to 10 year window means society is about to radically change, and it's going to come apart at the seams. And it's only the strong bits are actually going to make it through this and be building blocks for the next era. And our
Mm.
current education system, we are for decades now we've been training workers who follow procedure. We have not been training problem solvers who can think, right? And everyone's terrified of offending someone else now, which means they don't. There's a lot of self censorship happening, and so the generation that is coming in will have to be stronger than the generation that fought World War II. And yet, look around. So I believe humanity will step up to the plate and rise to the challenge. But my goodness, it's going to be a steep learning curve.
Mm.
So, but things like people with multiple degrees, like the degree of flexibility that's required is going to be extraordinary. Like the people with degrees are custom fit to operate in this world, right? But if they have to be flexible, and a lot of the stuff they actually do is based on things that are illusionary or not no longer viable, then they have to be flexible and they have to be able to problem solve on the fly. And like what is their take the average professional now and take away their computer, then ask them to actually do stuff. We become dependent on computers and the internet for all sorts of things. Even something as simple as jump in a car and drive somewhere. When I was a kid learning to drive a car, we had paper maps in what was called a Refidex, right? But now we're absolutely dependent on Google Maps on your phone to the point where you can't even follow basic instructions. So we have substantially weakened as a species socially. So I can see a situation. The future is actually going to be based on what you can do. You know,
Mm.
not what fancy letters are after your name. And
Mm.
so a lot of the things that we think we depend upon, yeah, none of it's going to work very well.